I'm so glad you're here listening to the Sustain Your Passion podcast. I'm Genesis, your host and business development expert. If you're ready to make a bigger impact and income while helping others, then you're in the right place. Thanks for joining me, and I can't wait to help you sustain your passion. Hey everyone, welcome back to Sustain Your Passion. So today I am here talking with Rachel Levitt, a movement magician and personal trainer. I have been hardcore fangirling over all of her material lately, and I'm so glad to be talking with her today. I've learned a ton about movement and just can't wait to bring this conversation to you all here through the podcast. So Rachel, can you just give us a bit of an overview about who you help and how you help them?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Genesis, for having me. I'm super excited. So I help people who feel limited by their bodies in some way. Maybe that's because of pain or immobility or motivation. And I want to help you find freedom, joy, and physical well-being through movement. That is my passion. And I am the owner of Mindful Movement and Living. That's also my handle on all my social medias, Mindful Movement and Living. And I've created the Empowered Body Method, which is kind of my signature style / program.
Nice.
And I kind of just combine all of the things I love. I grew up doing martial arts and I'm a dancer. And so I'm a personal trainer, mobility specialist. I teach mindfulness meditation and I love wellness. And I just, smush it all together to make sure that you get a holistic solution to your movement problems,
Yeah, I love that. It's so rare to hear like all of those different pieces brought together. So that's really cool. I'd love to hear more about like your education and your background and then how you came to start your own business.
Yeah, thanks. I grew up doing martial arts. I do Hapkido, which is a Korean martial art, and it means harmony, energy, way,
Hmm.
which really ties into what
Yeah,
I do now. And
that
so,
tracks.
yes. So that was kind of something I was just born into. Like my parents did it, and so that was kind of my sport.
Nice.
Then I got really into I loved the kind of athleticism of it, and I loved being upside down, and I was teaching myself gymnastics and stuff like that. And so in high school I finally started actually taking gymnastics lessons. I signed up for my high school gymnastics team because it was no cut and that was the cheapest way that I could do gymnastics.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, we're all in. We're just
Nice.
competing now.
Yeah.
But I worked really hard and I actually made it to varsity, which was super awesome.
Cool.
And then, in college, it's so funny because I did not choose my college based on the majors. It was just kind of who gave me the most money,
Mm-hmm.
and
Same.
turns out that they had an exercise science program. And so that was a no-brainer for me. I've always loved science, especially anatomy. And so, I was able to major in exercise science and learn anatomy and physiology and biomechanics. And I've, had classes taught by physical therapists, and we learned how to, tape people's ankles and, all that stuff. And then when it came time to do my thesis, because our school made undergrads do theses, I don't know why, but I was like, okay, I need to do something. I need to kind of go back to my roots of as a martial artist, because I was learning so much of the kind of mechanics and science behind all this movement, and martial arts was very intuitive. And, working with people's energy and working with your own energy. And I had done a lot of meditation in my martial arts practice and yoga and all of that stuff as well. And so I was like, how can I combine these things? And I was always the person who was combining things when it came to choosing your own experiments. Like I did one experiment with pianists and like wrist tendonitis and stuff. So I was like combining music and exercise and all that stuff.
Cool.
So I kind of stumbled upon mindfulness meditation and decided to really research that and, you know, figure out how it could help people and why it helps people with chronic pain. Because at the time I was interning at a physical therapy clinic, and they were like, we have this need to help with people's pain where our physical therapy exercises are not cutting it.
Mm,
And as physical therapists, we can't prescribe medication.
right.
So what are our options here? And so I was like, okay, I can help this physical therapy clinic and, do my thesis at the same time. And so I ended up, as kind of the project for that, recording a mindfulness meditation that the physical therapist could give to their patients
Oh, cool.
and that they could kind of incorporate into their treatment plans. And so then after college, I was like, okay, well, I don't really want to go back to school, even
Mm-hmm.
though physical therapy would be super fun. So I became a personal trainer, because that was, with my background in exercise science, I could basically just take the test at that point.
Yeah.
Um, so I did that for a few years. And then, I realized I was like, I need to, I'm missing the creativity a little bit. I'm missing kind of the artistic side of myself.
Mm,
And I was also kind of entrenched in fitness culture and diet culture. And I was doing my best to kind of stay out of that. I definitely had a unique perspective in training my clients compared to other personal trainers that I was working alongside. But I was like, I think I need my own container,
mm.
because the container that I'm in is not, you know, fully letting me teach what I believe to be true and to be most helpful. And so, yeah, I started my own business, and now I get to combine everything. I get to combine the mindfulness meditation. I get to combine, the exercise science and the biomechanics, and I get to combine the mindset work and anti-diet culture, health at every size, all of that stuff. Um, and I can be, my own container with my clients. And I think, it's really important, because, you know, we only have one body,
Yeah.
right? And like our bodies are the reason that we get to exist.
Mm,
And for me, movement has been so incredibly healing. And I've also seen kind of the opposite. I've seen, the damage that movement can do as well with certain mindsets and all that stuff.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm just kind of, you know, teaching what I've learned and what I think that the world really needs right now, honestly.
Yeah, I love that. And, just to speak a bit about why I was so excited to talk with you, it's like that is the purpose of my brand Sustain Your Passion. Like there comes a point with every like creative, heartfelt doer that like is here to help people that like sometimes we outgrow the spaces that we were trying to be in, and the only way to really be fully expressed in our careers is to start our own thing. And I am just so happy that you figured that out so you didn't burn out in your career and in your passion for helping people with movement, and developed your own brand and your own offering suite so that you can get your message out into the world. Like that is so critical, because I know personally speaking, like I look at your posts and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like Rachel reads me. Like that is me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's so helpful because there are so many brands out there and people out there talking about movement from the place of like the result is to lose weight. The result is to like build more muscle, or what have you, like fit into the dress for your, high school reunion kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas I don't feel like that's really the goal that you have in mind when you work with your clients. At least that's definitely not the goal that like I've picked up from any of your content. So what would you say like your ultimate hope and outcome is for anyone that engages with your work?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to just find full connection and freedom within your body,
Mm.
because I've movement is such a privilege that we have, and I want people to be able to see everything that it can do for them, and and from like an intrinsic perspective, not from what you mentioned of this external, like fit into the dress, lose weight, even goals that are like, oh, I want to be able to squat 200 pounds or something. I don't even train those types of goals with my clients anymore.
Mm.
I'm like, what do you want to do? What do you want to have the freedom to be able to do? And how do you want to feel? And let's do that.
Mm.
Like I, for instance, like my functions that I want to be able to do are, dancing and, you know, I have to have a certain amount of flexibility for that.
Yeah.
And some people will tell you that, oh, everyone needs to be able to do the splits. Like that's like a really good goal for everyone to have.
People say that.
At least on like, I mean, my For You page and all of that is like
Yeah.
very
We
skewed.
run in different
I'm
circles,
on a
Rachel.
different, yeah, yeah.
I
Like
would be like in the comments trolling that person, being like, bitch, shut up.
you're like,
Like,
lol, no. And
no.
no, I
When I
see
was
how,
like 10, I could.
right. I see all these like how to do your first pull up and like all of this stuff.
Mm.
And it's like, for what though? Like,
Yeah, like why?
why? Like I, you know, it should be functional training, and functional training, I think, has kind of, turned into this word for just like body weight training or something. Like,
Yeah, like
I don't really
functional
know.
fitness. Is that kind of,
Yeah.
I've
And
heard that, but I have no idea what it means.
for me, functional fitness is just whatever kind of, you know, training and exercises you would need to do to help you do the function that you want to do.
Okay.
So, if someone is, a new mom or something, their
Mhm.
functions include, putting the car seat in the car, bending over, picking up their baby, stuff like that. Like that's the functions. It's maybe, being able to get down up and down the floor without using your hands or things like that. It's not, you know, for most people, it's not doing handstands and things like
Yeah.
that, unless you want to, like I have a client who's an ice skater.
Hmm.
And so her function is ice skating. And so we're working a lot of stuff that, you know, for a lot of people would not be important to work on, because that's not what they need. Because at the end of the day, our bodies are adapting to what we are doing.
Hmm.
And so you kind of have to decide, what do I want to be able to do? And how can I, you know, how can I kind of teach my body to adapt to be able to do that thing?
Yeah.
And ease is a big word for me. Um, you know, things should feel easy and easeful, and pleasure is a big word for me too.
Hmm.
I think the fitness industry kind of teaches you that, exercise is just uncomfortable and it's meant to be painful, and you just have to push through and challenge yourself, and you know it's not a workout unless you feel like you're dying,
Right.
all
Like no
that stuff.
pain, no gain kind of bullshit.
And it totally doesn't.
Hmm.
And I, I used to think that I was doing something wrong because I was not moving or exercising in a way that felt bad.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
was like, I do not like to run, so I don't run. And
Mhm.
I love to dance, so I like dance is my cardio, you know?
Yeah.
And I used to think that I had to just force myself to run because that was the quote unquote perfect cardio or
Right.
something. When it's like, no, like that's not even that. I don't want to run. I don't like it. Um, so why am I trying to force myself to do it? You know,
Yeah.
and I see that in clients all the time. They're like, I don't like doing gym exercises, like, lifting weights or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, let's find out something that's fun.
Right. That
No,
makes sense. Like back to the functional dynamic, right? It's like, why are you training to run? Like, if your plan is only to run, should there be a zombie apocalypse? Like, maybe that's not the best goal for
right,
you. Like, but
right,
if you want to run like your first 5K, that matters to you, like,
yeah,
cool, let's do it. But yeah, like digging into really how will this fit into your life seems like something that you coach your clients around too. There's kind of this goal setting, strategy setting part that you do. It's not just like, I can help everyone do this one thing. It's like, I can help you personalize your plan to reach your personal functional fitness goals. Is that right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the goal setting is a huge thing because I believe you cannot convince your body to get on board with a goal unless you like deeply believe in it,
Mm,
and I think we do a lot of I think it's easy to convince our brains of something,
mhm.
because we have all of this messaging from society and, generational trauma and like all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's easy to convince your brain that something is important. But I found more often than not, if you have set a goal for yourself and it's not happening, it's because your body does not believe that that isn't important.
Hmm.
And maybe the thing itself is important, but the reason you're telling yourself it's important, that's the piece that's incongruent.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's a big reason actually why I don't teach weight loss anymore, is because I believe that that's a goal your body's just never going to get on board with.
Yeah.
Um, and that there's always another thing, another reason that you thought that was your goal. Does that
Oof.
make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
It really does. Huh.
yeah, and it's also like, I've seen it too many times where weight loss is the goal. And, I had clients working so hard and doing so well. And I was so proud of them. And they would step on the scale and maybe they had gained weight, or maybe they hadn't lost weight, or they hadn't lost as much weight as they wanted, or what have you. And they would just feel so terrible about themselves.
Mhm.
And there was nothing I could do to tell them that they shouldn't feel that way,
Right.
like I'd be like, no, like this is great, this is great, this is great. But they just couldn't see those things because they were viewing everything from the lens of weight loss. And I just saw how damaging that was.
Mhm.
And in my clients and in myself too, like I've always had a existed in a thin body, and I recognize my thin privilege.
Mm.
And you know it's also being in the industry that I am in, there's a certain expectation that you need to look a certain way,
Yeah.
that equates to your expertise, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
and it was just like, you know I never could get myself to care about losing weight
Mhm.
on the, you know the deep level. And so, yeah, it was just a lot of frustration and a lot of, just unhealthy behaviors that, I look back on and I'm like, oh my gosh, like if I had spent that energy, you know, really focusing on how my body felt and what made me happy and what felt joyous in my body and what felt easeful in my body, like, oh my gosh, that just would have been night and day difference.
Yeah. Gosh, you're kind of blowing my mind right now. So, um, I don't know if you follow my like for funsies TikTok, but I was posting like my food plans every day because I had joined this health coaching program that was designed to help you lose weight, but it was through the lens of like overcoming your overeating and that happens in your mind and your
Right.
emotions attached to it, not like your diet, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I was posting regularly and then like was feeling really good. Then I went up 0.4 pounds in like a week and was like, well, fuck this. Like same
Right.
thing, even though day to day I was feeling good and like I was enjoying the progress and all of that. It was just so hard to get myself away from the goal of only losing weight. And then hearing you talk about this of like if I hadn't, prioritizing other things like how my body feels and how I want to move it and what movement might feel good for me, like those lessons sound so freaking important to be learning along the way. And even like in the health coaching program, she talks about like it's not about what you ate that day or whatever. It's about did you stick to your plan that day? And if not, what emotions got in your way from being able to do that or what habits? Like
Right.
if you always end up eating, dessert, but you're not planning to eat dessert, how do you wrap your head around the fact that you like dessert and like that's okay,
Right.
but structure your life so it's allowing for it rather than resisting it?
Mm-hmm.
And so thinking about what you've been sharing about movement, I'm just sitting here like, fuck, like I prioritize comfort over most things. Like that is so important to me because I spent a lot of years like pretending to in my family structure, like it's a whole big thing, but like that's probably the shortest way to explain it. So
Mm-hmm.
because of that though, I also physically, like, I just don't pay attention to what my body's feeling most days. Like, I'll sit in the weirdest positions because it's like, this is what I'm used to and this is what I'm comfortable with. And then I'll go to the chiropractor and he's like, yeah, your hips are totally freaking like twisted. And I'm like, oh, they are? And he's like, yeah, do you sit cross-legged a lot? And I was like, literally like 8 hours a day. And he's like, oh, like, do you get up and stretch every once in a while? I'm like, oh, absolutely not. Like, what? Only
You're
if I
like,
have to like
I am
refill my water.
frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no.
I have
And
to literally be peeing my pants in order to get up.
yes,
Yeah.
literally it's ADHD. Like John will walk out and I'll have been like hunched over on my laptop for 4 hours like a little troll. And he's like,
Yes.
what are you doing? And I'm like, working. And he's like, okay, are you ready to eat? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. Starving.
Oh my gosh, I have so many pictures that my husband has taken of me in the troll position.
Right. And like the foldy legs, just like
Yes.
hunch. It's all very unaware experiences in your body. And just hearing you reflect on like some of your pieces and your journey too of moving away from this like weight loss goal, it's so helpful to just consider that like I feel like I'm probably going to say this and you're going to be like duh, but like in my head it's like there are so many other ways that we move our body than just exercise for the purpose of losing weight, and yet in my head right now that's not true. And so you're just really opening up that like awareness towards you are constantly moving your body. Like right now, I'm literally moving my hands because I talk with my hands.
Yeah.
And yet I would not think about that as movement. But if I were to consider, well, why do I want to, if I were to take away I want to lose weight. Well, no, I really just want stronger arms. Like
Yeah.
that is something that would be really exciting for me. But if I were to be pressed on like, when do you use your arms? I would be like, I don't know, like to type on my computer, like, I don't know. Like, I don't want my carpal tunnel like flaring up anymore. I would think of the very like medicinal doctor-y type of pain. But
Right.
then you're kind of flipping it for me towards this pleasure and joy and like just happiness in your body and what it can do for you. I want my hands, I want my arms to be strong so that I can talk with my hands when I talk. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Your
literally
shoulders
it's a
don't
form
get
of
tired.
self-expression. What?
Yeah.
What?
No, and that's like so true because like I had this client and she started rock climbing as her kind of main movement, and she was telling me that like she's like rock climbing and doing this challenging movement basically taught me that I could do hard things, you know?
Mm,
And she like so she was like, yeah, when I was asked to like, speak in front of the class or whatever for her like school, she's like, I wasn't as afraid because my body can do hard things. And so it's like, you want strong arms? Yeah, that's going to show you that like that you are strong, and it's not just about your arms, it's about, how you show up in the world as well.
right.
And like I like movement had like for me personally, like everything has to be movement first for me. Like I am, you know, so cerebral sometimes and so analytical that I will just overthink the shit out of things and just like,
Mhm.
da, 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 da.
Yeah.
So when I can come back to my body, that's when I can figure things out. That's when I know how I'm feeling. My body knows things before I do. Like I remember, this really uncomfortable interaction with somebody, and my head did not know what was happening, but afterwards I was constantly doing these like really deep breaths, and that was like my body saying like that wasn't okay what just happened.
Yeah.
Like you need to, like, my body knew, you know and when we can bring that awareness in, because our bodies are talking to us, but like what you were saying before of just kind of ignoring your body all day,
Mhm.
we are 100% taught to do that. Like, think about in school, you have bathroom passes. You're not allowed
Yeah.
to even go to the bathroom when you want to or
Right.
need to. We're taught that breakfast, lunch, and dinner have to be at certain times,
Mhm.
that noon is for breakfast or for lunch or whatever. And so
Yeah.
if you're hungry an hour after you ate, then there's something wrong with you and that you shouldn't listen to that. And, we're taught that like movement is only exercise. So,
Mhm.
if you don't feel like doing 10 squats and burpees and blah, 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 then that means you don't want to move.
Yeah.
And, and like, and that's just, we do kind of have to I guess I don't even like to use the word learn, because for me, I think it's just about remembering and kind of uncovering what's already there.
Yeah, like we have to unlearn a lot of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of kind of the way I teach movement is kind of reminding people that like, you've done this before. Your body does know how to do this. Like, you know, it might have been since you were not since you were like 4 years old that you've done this thing or whatever, but at
Mhm.
one point
Mhm.
you were able to do a perfect deep squat or like whatever it is,
Yeah.
and so that has been a helpful thing for me, at least, of just like, okay, it's not like learning this foreign thing. It's like all of this is kind of inherent and can be instinctual, and we just have to, open up our awareness to that.
Right.
Um, yeah.
So what would you say to the person that's like me, that literally just like prioritizes everything else but taking care of their body
Mhm.
and doesn't even have goals yet? Because
Yeah.
it's interesting hearing the way that you're framing it, right? It's very like your goals matter. And like, that's what everything's built off of. But like, I don't even have goals.
Right.
And I think at one point we were chatting about like, stretches you can do when you like work from home or something like that. And, or like chair stretches, or I don't remember exactly the
Yeah.
conversation, but it's like, I I I hope there's other people like me. I don't think I'm an anomaly, but like I literally don't even have fitness, flexibility, movement goals right now. So like what would be your advice for someone that's in my position that like your body is designed to move, right? I think at one point, when we were prepping for this podcast, you shared like your body is designed to move. Like that is its like most natural form, is like it's designed to move. But I spend so much time sedentary because my job is talking to people or typing things or troll hunching over the laptop to review documents and whatnot. And so I don't even know where I would start in terms of establishing goals. But do you have just like, this would be the first layer, like I think everyone should be able to do? Or would you, I don't know, I'm gonna stop there and just let you riff. Like, but what would you say to someone like me that just doesn't even know where to start?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And there are so many people in your position. I mean, I think the biggest thing is to look at kind of the lifestyle that you want to have. Like you have dogs, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great place to start of like, okay, you want to be able to go on walks with your dogs or go on hikes or things like that. Um, kind of looking at what movements do you already do in your life. And then you mentioned, you realized, oh, I'm sitting a lot of the day or I'm standing still for a lot of the day. That's also a first layer step, is kind of realizing, okay, how still am I? Because if we kind of get nerdy for a second and we
Let's go
think
there.
about how the body is designed, right? So all of our joints have synovial fluid in them, which is basically the lubrication for the joints, and it's what keeps our joints from feeling stiff and achy and gross.
Oh, okay.
And when we don't move, the fluid is not, your body doesn't know to make more fluid, and the fluid kind of just stays in one spot. So then when you do go to move or something, then parts of your joints aren't being lubricated. So movement is kind of the only way that your joint knows to keep your joints loose and not stiff, so movement is the way that we can talk to our bodies. And in the joint capsule itself, you have these receptors that are in the joint itself, not the muscles around the joint, not the tendons or the ligaments or whatever. It's like in the joint itself, and we have to speak to that. And so a big thing that I start people off with is it's called controlled articular rotations, or CARs for short. Okay. And you can do them for every single joint of your body. And a lot of times we go through and we just kind of see, where is this joint at? How much can it move? How stiff does it feel? Where is it missing motion? And that kind of can give us a direction of what your body might be craving. And especially if you don't have particular symptoms, a lot of people in your position would probably say that they have back pain or shoulder pain or neck pain and things like that.
Yeah.
So we kind of look at the literal pain points as well, but kind of going in and getting the joints moving, all of them, and kind of using that as an assessment tool, but also as this can be your first movement. These rotations, like shoulder circles, like if you just bring your arms are just kind of hanging at your sides, if you just bring your shoulders up to your ears and then back and down and forward, up, back, down, that's that's, a controlled articular rotation for your scapula, for your shoulder blades.
Yeah.
And that's so easy, right? You can do that anytime.
Yeah.
You can do that right now as we're talking.
I just did.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Huh.
So that's kind of where I start people, is like, let's just see what your body is telling us and combine that with what you want for your life.
Wow.
Because I kind of have ideas of, how much range of motion a person would want to be able to do most things, but no one knows your body better than you, so we have to kind of start from your body versus what me or the science or whatever tells you are like the standard amount of movement or
right. That's fascinating because when I hear the word movement, and even knowing like what you focus on with your clients, I'm picturing like big movements, right? Like dancing, like martial
right.
arts, like hiking, like sweating it out in the gym, like running, like high intensity movement. Because when I think about, and this is all predicated on like all the beliefs, right? Of like movement
Right.
is to sweat, movement is to lose weight, movement is to fix your body in some way, like because your body is bad and you need to improve it. And
Right.
so I go directly to this like intense workout. But
Yeah.
you're really making me think like movement is everything. Like right now, I'm like scratching the top of my head. Like that was movement. Like even just being aware of the fact that like it's one of those duh things, but I don't think we're taught in society to value the littlest things our body does for us, because we just overlook it and take it for granted
Oh,
and don't
absolutely.
realize like, no, like some people cannot do that. And if you could not do that, you would feel pain that you
Right.
lost that capability. But like you do have that capacity right now. You're just not really taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
And that is losing like your own comfort. And like even just thinking about the shoulder circles, right? It's like one of my biggest problems is my traps, like my shoulder, the top of my shoulders and my neck.
Yeah.
And so every time I get a massage or go to a chiropractor, they're always like, you have
You're so tight.
literally, they're like, these are the tightest trap muscles like I've
Yeah.
ever felt. And I'm
Yeah.
like, thank you, but also yikes.
Yeah.
And I'm getting carpal tunnel from like neck movements and whatever. And so thinking about how all of that is connected, it really just brings me back to your point of like our body is designed to move, and like all movements matter and all movements count. And yet like yeah, I know personally, I don't think I'm nearly as aware or like grateful for all that my body does for me right now. That
Mhm.
like maybe that's a good place to start, even, like being aware of,
No, that's
like we're saying, what do you currently do and
yeah.
how does that match then? Oh,
No, that's an excellent place to start. And like, even because what you said, like a lot of us don't realize how important movement is until we can't do it.
mm,
You I don't know, injure your shoulder or something, and you realize, oh, I can't brush my hair, or I can't, put on a bra, or, things like that. And those are the functions. When I talk about functional fitness, it's like, yeah, we could talk about the big things like hiking and, I don't know, paddleboarding or what have you.
yeah,
But it's like when you think about what do you want to be able to do when you get older, it's like you want to be independent. you know
right,
you want to be able to get dressed and get down, up and down off the floor, and reach up and get on your tiptoes to grab a coffee mug. You want to be able to lose your balance and catch yourself. And yeah, I actually, my sister has muscular dystrophy.
okay,
And so it's a degenerative neuromuscular disease. And basically what it does, like her body cannot make muscle. So
Okay.
like the amount of muscle, like the strength she was born with is basically the strength she has now, essentially.
Wow.
So, she can't walk, she can't pick up anything heavier than like her phone, she can't lift her arm up to, get an earring in herself, like all that stuff. So like I I've seen how vital movement is to our lives, just seeing how much she cannot do.
Yeah.
And 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 also how important movement is to her, like what she can do. Like she's a singer, and
Mm.
so her main movement is breathing and singing, and getting, and
Yeah.
that's a ton of movement. And that's a great place to start for everyone too, is like, getting control over your diaphragm and really expanding through your rib cage and engaging your abdominals and all of that stuff.
Mm.
And that's movement for her, is the singing. And even, I see how much she moves when she performs. She's like tapping her foot, and she's like kind of swaying, and
Mm.
that brings her joy.
Yeah.
That movement brings her joy, even though she, you know, doesn't have the capacity to move the way we can.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I think, you know, I we are not morally obligated to optimize our health or our movement or anything, but but I also see just how much freedom movement can give you.
Yeah.
And I think that if you are capable of that, like, you know, you'd want to explore it. You'd want to find that freedom.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And thank you for sharing that with me about your sister. And that just is so real, you know? I had surgery. I don't know if I've shared this with you. I had a basketball-sized ovarian cyst that we didn't none of my doctors found.
Ugh,
Um,
that's
and
a
then
whole
it
other
was
rant.
yeah, exactly. And then COVID hit and I just assumed like, "Oh, I'm gaining some weight, whatever." And then
Right.
finally by a whole other purpose, they found it and I had to have it removed, obviously, through a surgery. And in that surgery, it was like a 5.5 hour surgery. Um, I still don't know exactly what happened. Like the surgeon says it was just from being in stirrups on a metal table for 5.5 hours.
Uh-huh.
But like my primary doctor is like, "Nah, they probably like nicked your nerve or something." But I don't know. But I got nerve damage in my hip from
Mhm.
it, and it ran all the way down to my toes.
Mhm.
And over time, it moved, like it's less now. It's up in like my thigh now, but
Right.
I still have limited mobility because of it. And those like first few weeks I couldn't like get out of bed on my own. I couldn't sit down to use the bathroom. Like I couldn't use the toilet. I couldn't like put my pants on myself. And going up and downstairs to get into my bedroom was challenging. Like it took so much more time. And just realizing how quickly, like how fragile our bodies are,
Mhm.
and also like how resilient they are, and like finding that balance between like, I wanna be very careful in my body and knowing, like, what the threshold is for growing my muscles and growing my capability
Mhm.
is it feels like a really sensitive spot to figure out because since then, that was 2021, here we are, what, 2 years later now? Almost in June, it'll be 2 years. I'm still dealing with the ramifications of that surgery that, like, I had to have, and yet I still probably couldn't list out every way that my life has changed because of it, but I know so much of my life has changed because of it because, like, I can't kayak the same I used to. I
Right.
can't go for walks the way I used to, and, like, so many things like that that, yeah, you don't really realize until you don't have the capacity, like, how much your body does for you. And I can only imagine your sister's situation, being born with the amount of muscle like she was going to have for life, like how that has changed so little over time.
Mhm.
And but her desires to do more and more things, to become more fully expressed as herself over the years, has grown, I'm sure. And
Mhm.
so then navigating that balance, it's like, oh gosh, it's just such a good reminder that our bodies have capacity
Mhm.
for movement, and like whatever that level is for you, it's just a good reminder, like, to be grateful for it, and not
Yeah,
just take it for granted,
for sure.
because
And
it
like,
can change so fast, whether you fall down the stairs or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
it can change in an instant. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, like nerve damage, that's super frustrating because nerves heal so slowly.
So slow.
But the fact that yours is like moving up your leg, like that's a really, really good sign. And
Mhm.
nerves just, yeah, they just take a super long time to heal. Um,
Right.
but yeah, and what you mentioned about kind of the fine line, kind of
Mhm.
fragility versus resilience, like I don't think that we talk about that enough, and that we kind of understand the nuance of that. um Exercise is a stress on your body, 100%.
Mhm.
And we have to kind of look at, you know at what point is this stress going to cause, adaptation in my body, and at what point is this stress just going to be stress and cause damage, and it is a lot of work to figure that out for yourself, because it's always going to be changing,
Yeah.
like day to day it's going to change, even honestly, like hour by hour,
Mhm.
depending on you know how much you've eaten that day, how much water you've had, like I recently tore my meniscus, and obviously the amount of movement I could do that would be too much for my knee now is a lot different than it was 6 months ago, and so you have to be constantly reevaluating that for yourself, and that can be particularly difficult, especially if you've had an injury, or if you have chronic pain, or if you have something that kind of flares up like fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think it's just really important to remember that, you know, we have both. It's like, yes, we don't want to overstress our bodies, but our bodies are strong,
Yeah.
and I think that a lot of times people kind of teach one end of the spectrum or the other,
Yeah.
and don't really get at the nuance. Like if you look at, recommendations for like, you know, back pain or something,
Mhm.
or any pain, honestly, like a lot of times the advice is, well, just don't do the thing that gives you pain,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
or like only lift with your legs and don't lift with your back. And it's like that's kind of on the end of your body's super fragile.
Yeah.
And but then you kind of, if you're on that end of the spectrum, you end up closing your circle smaller and smaller and
Mhm.
smaller, and life is big.
Right.
It's not a tiny circle, and sometimes you do have to lift with your back, and you can't always lift with your legs, and sometimes, you know things are gonna, and so, but on the other end of the spectrum, if you're like, no, my body's strong and I don't have to, like, it can do anything,
Right.
like, then you're not listening to maybe the pain cues or the fatigue cues, or what have you, that your body is telling you to slow down or to stop.
Right.
And so we really have to find that middle ground, and that can be really difficult to do on your own, for sure.
Mhm. Totally. That makes me think of, there's this student development theory. So my master's in ed, the degree type was an MED, but the program I was in was College Student Services Administration. So
Mhm.
basically like how to run a university.
Mm.
And one of the classes we took was, it was a two-part, was student development theory. So it's basically all of the human development that happens for typical college age students, so 19 to like 24-ish,
Mhm.
starting to make all of our, personal life decisions and carve out who we are once we're potentially exposed to lots of other ways of being outside of the home we were brought up in,
Mhm.
around like our primary caregivers and how we navigate all of that stuff. And
Mhm.
one of the theories that we learned about was called challenge and support.
Mm.
It comes down to like what you're describing, which was any helping professional needs to be very aware
Mhm.
of those cues you're referencing
Mhm.
of like is this person straining too hard, or
Mhm.
is this goal appropriate? And whenever you're in a coaching or training or consulting like leadership of someone else's decision making in some way, and there's a power differential, right? They want to please you,
Right.
they look to you as the knower. When you are that guidepost for them, you have to be aware, like, I need to challenge this person, yes, to reach the goals they've expressed, but I
Mhm.
also need to be able to make that challenge an appropriate challenge for them. So they're going from, step 1 to 2 instead of step 1 to 7. But
Right.
also, if they want to go from step 1 to 2, person A needs 5 steps
Mhm.
between step 1 and 2. Person B might need one.
Mhm.
But how do you slow down appropriately and give the right supports to the individual you're working with in front of you and based on their needs? And that's where like that personalization is so necessary
Mhm.
for guide guide type work, like coaching type work, because not everyone's body can work the same,
Right.
And so if you tell everybody, oh, just do, it's like the calories in, calories out folks that
Yeah.
are just like, oh,
It's
everybody's body works the exact same, calories in, calories out. It's like
not
you are
math like
skipping
that.
so much data. Like there are
Yeah.
so many more variables. You clearly know nothing about like psychological statistics because that's not how it works. And
Right.
that kills me because those are the voices, like, unfortunately, when people come out with like super strong opinions that
Mhm.
aren't educated, that aren't versed in the nuances, they just come out with like these big bold statements that they want to apply to everybody when it's like could be false for some people. Like
Right.
potentially. So how do you open up that door to like figure out what is it that you're trying to say and then make it accessible for more people? Like, and know how to offer the support you need to for the person who is like, well, I would love to do 10 squats today, but I also know that last week when I did 9, the
Mhm.
10th one I tried to push for and I ended up feeling like my fibromyalgia flared up after that.
Right.
Or like I actually fell to the floor because I couldn't do the 10th. And so now I'm dealing with knee pain or something. Like
Right.
you need to know what that threshold is for each person and you always can't be there. So how do
Right.
you teach people how to look for those cues when
Mhm.
you're not around, right?
Yeah. And that is like such a I'm sure people on my social media get annoyed because I get a lot of questions that ask like, how many times should I do this exercise? Or,
Yeah.
how many reps and sets and blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, it depends. Like,
Right? It depends.
I'm like, sorry. Cause like the science will tell you, like we have numbers for what is the best amount of sets and reps for hypertrophy of like making your muscles bigger versus what's the best for making your muscles stronger versus what's the best for making them, more like have better endurance, all that stuff. But it is so nuanced and it is so down to the individual, especially if you look at who these studies are
Mm,
looking at. A
mhm,
lot of it is like, you know, I mean, I would say unless it says specifically, it's able-bodied people in general, and,
mhm,
and a lot of times it's male college athletes. A
mm,
lot of these studies are done. And you talked about, how many variables there are in life, like exercise science, like how can you control for all of those variables when you're measuring? Like, okay, yeah, you could have everyone eat the exact same thing, but but then everybody's metabolism is different, and everybody, has different, like it's so complicated. And so that's why mindfulness is such an important aspect of my coaching,
Mhm.
because I I can't tell you those numbers for you.
Mhm.
I can give you a range and a guesstimate once I get to know you and once I understand your specific situation and all of that. But tuning into your body and taking those moments to really, notice any and all sensations, that's a phrase I use a lot in my meditations, is any and all sensations. And and that means the absence of sensation as well.
Mhm.
And really being able to tune into that and noticing, you know, yeah, what's happening in your body, what thoughts are associated with certain sensations, what what does the air feel like on your skin, like all of those things are going to help you, tune into what types of movement and the amount and frequency and all of that, what's going to be best for you.
Yeah.
And it can be frustrating because it's a never ending thing. Like you
Mhm.
have to be constantly calibrating because, you know, your body is constantly changing. You're making cells and cells are dying, and like there's just constant change in your body, right? Like that's saying,
Yeah.
like, the only constant is change.
Yes.
And but I encourage people to, you know, look at that from a curiosity standpoint,
Mhm.
childlike curiosity, like you'd be so excited, when little kids see something new, they're so excited. They're like, what is this? What does this mean?
Mhm.
And we can do that with our bodies too, instead of always going to like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And even when it's pain, like I have a lot of clients who have chronic pain for one reason or another, and we're so used to either ignoring the pain or saying pain is bad. This is bad. How do I fix it?
Mhm.
And it's like, what if we looked at it as, okay, what is my body trying to say? Like
Mhm.
what is it saying? Instead of, and it's like, it's hard because, pain isn't pleasant, right? Like it is, you know, it's hard to say, oh, look at pain objectively. Don't look at it as a negative. That's hard because it's painful. It's in the word,
Right, exactly.
like
It doesn't feel good always.
right, right. But like, yeah, it makes a difference when we can kind of just start to get curious about our bodies and really try to be in communication. And I personally, I just talk to my body like it's a little kid, like, and not in a like condescending way or anything, like just like a, like in a way that you would, just give unconditional love to a child, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that has helped me so much in rehabbing my meniscus. Like
Mm.
this is the first injury I've gotten since I've, you know, started my business and kind of developed my teaching methods.
Mhm.
And I can tell you that it is just so different than how I've treated myself when I've been injured before.
Yeah.
There was a lot of blaming, there was a lot of frustration, there was a lot of, you know, just getting really depressed and like all that stuff. And this is probably a, you know, probably a bigger injury than ones I've had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just letting my body lead this,
Mm.
and it's hard to explain, but I'm really just in communication with my knee, and I talk to it, and it talks back in varying levels of pain. you know
What? Okay.
and
I need to know what your knee says to you. I need you to like model this for me. What?
okay, so okay, this is so weird, but the first thing I did when I landed wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and I could feel that, oh, this is not this is not something I'm gonna just spring off the floor from.
Yeah.
you know I I was quick to just be like, it's okay, like, it's okay, knee, like, you did your best, like, like, I was just like really treating it like it was a child that, like, maybe, I don't know, like, made a mistake or something, like, because I was like, as soon as I start blaming and getting frustrated, then everything's going to tense up. It's going to activate my nervous system. It's going to, and so the first thing after that was, just slow movements. Could I straighten my knee all the way? Could I bend it all the way? Could I bear weight with it? All of that stuff.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of saying like, yeah, okay, like nothing's like, I could kind of tell that like the ligaments are fine, like we're able to stand up okay. Like this is okay. Like and yeah, and turns out like I was right, and it was the meniscus. It wasn't ligaments, it wasn't tendons and stuff, like nothing was like, you know, I mean, a meniscus tear is a structural damage, but it wasn't like as structural as it could be, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And so yeah, it's kind of just figuring out what types of pain mean what.
Mm.
And like there are certain times where my body gives me a zing, the
Mm.
knee gives me a zing, and it's like, whoa, we were not ready for that yet.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, but it's been hard of figuring out, okay, does that zing mean that I just damaged it more?
Mhm.
Or does it mean, oh, that was a warning, don't do that again, you know?
Yeah.
And it's been, and so the way I've kind of at least figured out the difference between those two messages is, how do I feel the next day, or how do I feel an hour later, or whatever. And so it's like, okay, if my knee was saying that was structural damage you did, that was another injury, it would still hurt later, it
Yeah.
would hurt the next day. But when it's a warning signal, that's just, it's going to kind of yell at me for a second, and then it's going to calm down.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it's a lot, and it can be especially hard, if you are neurodivergent as well, because it's known that people with ADHD, people with autism can, and PTSD, all the neurodivergencies
Yeah.
can really struggle with interoception, and can
Yeah.
struggle with being able to tune in. And um and so, but it's a skill that you can learn. And
Hmm.
it's not something, we're all, I think, born with certain talents, and or like, base levels of skill of certain things or whatever,
Mhm.
but you can absolutely learn these skills just like any other skill. Like you can
Yeah.
learn to talk to your meniscus in the same
Yeah.
way.
And listen for its
Yeah.
response.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
learn that, just like you can learn how to, like, I don't know, do fancy chopping in culinary school or something. I don't
Sure,
know.
like ride a bike or something. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So,
So interesting. How did you first learn about mindfulness?
so it was kind of like in part in martial arts, particularly during our summer camps. We would have, week-long summer camps that were targeted towards black belts and kind of young adult black belts. And we would start every morning reading and meditating. And so there were different books, and I think one of the books that I really enjoyed was called Mindfulness at Work or something like that.
Okay.
So that was where I was kind of first exposed to it, and practicing the breath and learning different ways to pay attention to the breath and potentially control the breath and stuff like that. But I really started researching it in college, and that's where I kind of uncovered John Kabat-Zinn's work and learned about the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. That's kind of like the gold standard, I suppose, of mindfulness. And I really was drawn to mindfulness over other forms of meditation because it was structured but not rigid. Like, and as someone with ADHD, it's really hard to focus sometimes. So the permission to be like, no, you're just focusing on your distractions. Like, you don't have to clear your mind. You don't have to try to slow your breath down to 60 beats per minute or whatever. Like, you can just pay attention to what's happening. And it made me realize how I like to practice mindfulness already that I didn't realize was meditation, like Tai Chi. Like, I was always drawn to the kind of solo fluidity of martial arts. Like, if we call them patterns, but like if you imagine Tai Chi, like we had patterns like that in Hapkido. So just kind of like, martial arts choreography, basically. And that was my favorite. And in gymnastics, the dance portion of the floor routine, that was my favorite. Like, I was always drawn to this mindful movement, basically. And this kind of fluid motion. And I realized when I was studying mindfulness that, like, oh, this is mindfulness. This is meditation. This is the way that I can really tune into my body. And for me, my mindfulness practice is primarily movement based. I am still kind of building the muscle of more seated meditation and being still. I think that is important as well. But the mindful yoga and mindful walking and all of that stuff, that's really helped me, build the interoception and build that body awareness and kind of just also knowing what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's so cool. I was wondering if you were going to say MBSR, like mindfulness stress reduction, because so I was diagnosed with PTSD in 2016, and I like was re-experiencing, because like my life finally slowed down after grad school enough that I like couldn't run from my childhood traumas anymore. And so I was diagnosed with PTSD and was recommended to start with mindfulness. And I was like, why would you want me to spend more time in my head? Right. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so I was like, whatever, like it's got to be important, because while I was an undergrad, I worked with a researcher that did mindfulness and I think it's love and compassion therapy, mindfulness, meditation. And so I was exposed to it a little bit, like as a research subject, but also learning about how they were conducting research. So it was a really cool class to be a part of.
Yeah, that sounds super cool.
It was awesome. Like, I got to go meditate for 4 days out of the week and learn how they were operating their research study on meditation. So it was so cool. Talk about like metacognition, right? Like, we're going to teach you what we're teaching you by teaching you how to do it. It was fascinating. And then kind of drifted away from it for a little bit in grad school, but then, was reintroduced to it for my own healing. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to like the source of this whole like mindfulness stress helper thing. Got the book Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction, and I think it's like you're supposed to read like a page a day or something. So I kept it in my bathroom and would read like every morning while I was brushing my teeth. I'd be reading my one little page.
Nice.
And it blew my mind. And that was actually the foundation of my first coaching program I offered, which was a self-love based career coaching program. Because it's the same dynamic of like, I now teach mindfulness meditation and talk about it differently than I think a lot of people do, because it's rooted in MBSR practices of what you were describing of like, just let it come up, acknowledge it's there, and then let it go. Like, you don't have to try to not have thoughts, which I think is an unfortunate like pop culture myth about what mindfulness meditation is designed for. When it's like, it's not that you're trying to like clear yourself of any thought, like, and that you like did something wrong by having a thought come up. Like, that is literally the point of your consciousness, is to always give you thoughts.
Right. Yeah.
So trying to resist that makes no sense, but trying to work with it makes a lot more sense to me. Like, and especially as someone with ADHD, like I have times where like 10 thoughts come up at once, and you want me to have no thoughts? Like, nah. But viewing it more as like, I'm just going to take this time to get to know myself. And I'm going to take this as a deliberate, like 2 minutes out of my day to listen to what my body is coming up with, versus like filling it with stimuli and directing it to certain things, and noticing like where my mind wants to take me. Shifted that for me to like, oh yeah, I'm constantly telling my brain what to think about, versus like, what if I just let my brain tell me what it wants to think about for a little bit and see what comes up. And so that you've adapted that dynamic into listening to your body. Like, what is that zing telling me? Like, where am I feeling an ache, or where am I feeling no sensation? Like, that makes so much sense. But I've never heard someone talk about like MBSR type mindfulness meditation in regard to like body scans and thinking about your body's feelings.
Yeah.
And if we were to take it back to like a previous conversation of where do you get started if you have no goals, like shit, that's probably a great way to get started, is like try to do mindfulness based body scans to even acknowledge like, where are you at, like what's your baseline right now, and then grow from there.
Yeah. And I actually I recorded a body scan that I wanted people to do while they were doing some other task, like folding laundry or doing the dishes or something, because I was like, there's, like kind of the informal section of MBSR, all about of just
moving
like mindful toothbrushing and
like anything can be more mindful.
Right. And I think that, just really giving people that permission that like mindfulness can be anything, movement can be anything, because we all have these boxes that we put everything in, and we can't help it. That's like our brains are made to judge things, like
right.
We are made to categorize things so that we can better, make sense of the world that we're living in, but it's, being able to constantly reassess and be like, is this box serving me right now? Or do I need to make it a circle? Or do I need to, I don't know. Yeah. And
it's so liberating, right? Like taking away those rules that we pick up from society and other people, and like giving ourselves permission to be the rule decider of like, how does this feel for me right now in this moment?
Right.
Oof.
Yeah. Cause like you said, of like, yeah, what does my brain want to think right now, instead of what do I want to think, or what should I think right now? Like, it's like, I think, yeah, your body will always have an answer for you. and yeah, allowing that answer to be okay, even if we don't have the means to do whatever that is right now, like sometimes, your body's telling you to rest and you just are not in a position where you can rest right now. Like there's not always times that you can follow what your body needs or what it's telling you, but at least having that awareness and being able to say, like, I hear you, I recognize that, and unfortunately we have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and again, kind of bringing it back to these like child like
Yeah.
metaphors or whatever of like, sometimes the kid does not want to do the thing or whatever, and you can validate that feeling and say like, look, I hear that you don't want to do this, but we have to do this right now. you
Yeah.
know
And then we can rest. Like even just being aware that your body wants rest right now, even if you can't give it to it right away. Maybe when you're done, I'm picturing a hike. Let's say you're on a hike. Maybe you're not going to stop because you want to get down to your car, right? Like you
Right.
can't just call it
Yeah.
quits on the side of the mountain. But
Yeah.
like maybe that's important for you to know so that if by the time you get back to the parking lot, if your hiking buddy is like, you ready to go walk over to the river now? And you're like, no, actually,
Mhm.
like my body needs to break. And to
Yeah.
even be aware of that is helpful, even if you can't act on it right away.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, that happens to me, you know, so much, like just going on walks or being hungry or whatever. I was so used to just kind of pushing through. If somebody else wanted to keep walking, then I would keep walking, even if I was tired, and just, recognizing like, oh, okay, like maybe I have been ignoring, maybe I can't feel the aches in my feet yet, but I see that I'm getting a little bit more irritable or reactive or whatever, and that's a sign that like maybe things need to slow down. It's like kind of, picking up wherever you can, especially with the body signals. It's like there was, and I'm still kind of relearning hunger cues, honestly, because there was just so much of my career that I had to kind of force myself not to eat because I just didn't have time with my schedule, basically. Like I had to just, and so my body stopped telling me it was hungry. Like from 4 a.m. to 1 p.m., I would not feel hungry
Wow.
because my body learned that there was no point in telling her to eat because she couldn't,
Yeah.
or
Shouldn't
she
ignore
wouldn't.
it. Yeah.
So I had to pick up on other things then of like, oh, when I'm really tired, maybe it's not that I need to take a nap, maybe I need to eat something.
Yeah.
Or like maybe like the reason I don't want to go to the gym is because I don't have any fuel to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard, and there's so many layers to everything, but figuring out like where can your entrance be.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's mood related, maybe it's body sensation related, maybe, but it's like we all have like a door that we can open, and we just have to kind of figure out, and maybe there's multiple doors, but like, okay, what's the easiest door to open right now?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's this yeah. So I was an academic advisor for, 5+ years
Mhm.
in universities, and we used to have to get students to come and meet with us,
Mhm.
which you would think like, oh, you're here going to college, like you want to take the right classes, right? Like talk to your advisor.
Mhm.
But there's plenty of reasons that students don't want to talk to their advisors or just don't think about it. They may not even know that that is something that they could access, and all the way to they actively like dislike, people telling them what to do, and that
Right.
everywhere in between. But ultimately, as the university, like there was the responsibility on our end to make sure that students got advice on what classes to take, because otherwise we would have, a lot of students spending a lot of money and a lot of time kind of exploring without direction.
Mhm.
And so we used to have them come in so they could get their PIN that would open up the registration system for them.
Mhm.
And we used to talk about a lot that with doing something like that for behavioral change. Have you ever read the book Nudge?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, it's so good for behavior change. It's all about like nudge theory and just like gentle nudges towards better decision making.
I love that.
It's so good. And so we would discuss as colleagues, do we want to use the carrot? So, ooh, come in and get your pen. That's so exciting. Like you can have your pen and you can register. Or the stick, like, hey, beat you with a stick to get you into the office. Like we're going to make it where you can't, go and get your whatnot. Like we take away something, right? Like you can't get your transcripts until you come and get your pen, or I don't know, variations of that. Yeah. But ultimately it comes down to behavior change. Like we either want to move towards something good or away from something bad. Right. It's either like gotten so bad that we finally are changing it, or we realize like that sounds so good that I'm willing to change my behavior and move towards it. Yeah. But if you're just kind of in the middle, and like you don't have a particular goal that you're trying to work towards, it sounds really good, but you're not in enough pain that like you're trying to improve things, like you just kind of coast for a while, and that's okay. But I feel like I just want to hear your perspective on this idea of like, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's kind of this element of like, back to your first lesson about, I forgot what you called it, the fluid, like in our joints, that literally we have to move our body in order to create the signal for it to like lube our joints.
Yeah.
And that's critical. Just like, you have to put oil in your car so it can run all of the machinery to be able to move your vehicle. Like you have to move your body in order for it to be able to move your body. Like it's such a, I don't know, like double-edged sword, or just like a loop that's like, to do it, you have to do it, but to do it, you have to do it. And like, but to do it, you have to do it. And so I'm just curious, like, how do you respond to the idea of like, if you don't use it, you lose it, in regard to your muscle or your movement capabilities? Like, is that true? Or what would you add to that statement?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that, that is true. It's hard because I don't want to use fear as a motivator. Right. But it is true. If you don't use it, you will lose it, but I like to think of it, in the sense of that your body's just trying to become more efficient, and it is really just trying to help you do whatever it is that you're doing better and with less energy. But the only way that it knows what you want to do is by you doing it. And so, if you think about developmentally, like, right, like we're capable when we're babies or whatever of making any sound, but then we learn whatever our language is, and we lose the ability to make certain sounds because we haven't needed to make those sounds. And that's kind of like why accents exist. And and so, but the same thing happens in our joints and in our muscles as well. If you at some point in your life went from sitting on the ground or sitting in a deep squat to always sitting in a chair, why would your body keep the muscle and keep the neuromuscular connection? Why would it keep all that extra stuff if you're telling it that you don't need to keep it? Your body doesn't want to be a hoarder,
Yeah.
It's trying to just like it, and it's trying to help you. Like, that's what I think too, is like, it's not punishing you and being like, well, I'm going to take this movement away from you if you're not going to do that. It's like, oh, you want to sit? Cool. Like, well, like, that's great. And that's kind of where, those, muscular imbalances come from, of like, oh, you're constantly sitting down. Okay, well, your hip flexors are shortened, so we'll just tighten them up for you so that you don't have to, use your hip flexors as much. Because if we make them tighter and shorter, then that just becomes its own, you know, mechanism or whatever, and you don't have to use energy to contract the muscle because if it's already tight, so your body is really just trying to make things easier for you.
Hmm.
But the problem is that, you know, then when we do want to do something else and when we need to do something else, then we can't do it or it hurts. And so but the cool thing about our bodies is that we can always relearn stuff. We
Hmm.
can always decide and choose to start giving it input that, oh, actually I do want to do this thing again.
Hmm.
And you have to find the right regression slash progression to be able to do things like if you had never used your arms and we're like, okay, we're going to start with bicep curls, I would not hand you 50-pound dumbbells, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But and I think that's something that everyone kind of inherently knows. But sometimes when it comes to more functional movements of like a deep squat or like something like that, sometimes or a push-up or other things, we just try to do it.
Mhm.
We're like, oh, I want to do this skill, so I'll just try to do that skill,
Yeah.
instead of like, no, like what's the skill equivalent of the 2-pound dumbbells,
Huh.
like
Yeah.
how can we work up? And one of the ways that is super, super cool, and I think you'll really appreciate, is our imagination.
Yeah.
There was this one study where they immobilized people's hands, their like thumbs specifically,
Okay.
for I think it was a month,
Oh my gosh.
like put them in casts. And so like we know that they're going to lose function in their thumbs, they're going to lose muscle. And they had one group, do nothing, just like have their hand in a cast or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they had the other group imagine and visualize themselves engaging their muscles and doing like wrist and hand exercises, like
Mhm.
fully imagining themselves doing it.
Mhm.
And the group that imagined stuff, they only lost, I think it was like 24% of their strength versus the group that didn't do anything lost 50% of their strength.
Wow. What the heck?
I know. It's
That's so
crazy.
cool.
It's so cool.
Part
And
of my mind is
yeah.
bananas.
And so if you think about it, because it can feel so overwhelming if you are someone who has been immobile for a long time, you've been in pain for a long time, and you're like, how in the heck am I going to go from where I am now to where I want to be? You're like, how do I even start? And sometimes you don't even have to start with movement, even. You can start with your imagination
Wow.
because that's going to build up the neuromuscular connections so that your brain is starting to get on board with this. And then we can start kind of moving from there. And so I use imagination with my clients all the time in conjunction with movement, you know, like if we're doing a deadlift or something, I'm like, you visualize your glutes squeezing.
Huh.
Like you imagine your butt squeezing as you
Yeah.
squeeze it, because that is going to just like, make your training that much more effective. And that's
Right.
why my business is called Mindful Movement and Living, because if we combine the mindfulness with the movement, with the living, we're just going to kind of open up so much more, because
Mhm.
your brain is powerful and your mind is powerful, and that can be encouraging, if you're injured or if you're sick or for some reason you're out of your normal routine. You don't have to freak out and worry that you're going to lose all this strength, because you can always imagine.
Wow.
It's so cool.
That's wild. That just, wow. That makes me think of so many things. Where to start though? Okay, so that makes me think of, did you read Health at Every Size by, I think it's Linda Bacon, Dr. Linda
Yeah,
Bacon?
I didn't read it, but I definitely am on board with all of the, the principles and
Yeah.
that stuff.
Well, I can't remember if it was that book or like an intuitive eating book, but there was a study in it where they gave participants milkshakes
Mhm.
and they have the same exact calories in it.
Yeah. And then the people who thought it was
Higher
fattening.
density.
Yeah.
Yeah, like gained weight or something, or
Yeah.
the opposite, whatever it was. It was like whatever they thought
Yes.
it was going to do, it happened, even though it was the exact same
I
item.
think that might have been, it was probably in both, but I think I remember reading that study in the intuitive eating book.
Okay, maybe, yeah, that
Yeah.
would make sense.
Yeah. And that's like, it's like, okay, goodbye, gym bros who are just saying
Calories
calories out.
in.
Like, get
Exactly.
out.
Like literally no. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, it
that's so
is.
cool.
It's
But then
crazy.
also to think about like the movement dynamic here, what would that look like for someone? So all of the people that I coach
Mhm.
on developing their businesses, I think it's like 95% of them work their business completely from home. There's various like events that they'll hold, or they'll go to like in-person networking events or whatever, but like we're largely work from homers. What would you say a visualization would be that could apply to anyone who works from home to
Mm.
feel more in touch with their bodies?
That's a good question. I like that question. I think probably the thing that comes to mind first is a visualization about your breath.
Hmm.
Because your breath is kind of the most foundational movement that we can have control over.
Hmm.
And your breath is always with you, and your breath is going to help you in whatever posture, position, movement you're in. So whether you're sitting at your desk, whether you have a standing desk, whether, so I like to imagine my rib cage expanding three-dimensionally like a balloon.
Hmm.
And so I just kind of, or like a beach ball or something. And so I imagine this kind of ball inside my rib cage, and it is expanding equally front ways, backwards, side to side, up and down,
Hmm.
and then fully deflating evenly throughout as well. And so that's a visualization I like to use um, in my meditations as well. And then if you really want to visualize and get into kind of your actual anatomy, you have your diaphragm, and it's like a dome shaped muscle. And when you breathe in, the dome kind of flattens out, it pulls down, and that is what creates the vacuum that pulls your breath in.
Hmm.
And then when you breathe out, it kind of domes back up, um, and creating like I guess the letter N as in Nancy, an N shape at the base of your rib cage. So for people who are imagining. So when you breathe in, it flattens out. And then when you breathe out, then it domes back up again.
Hmm.
So I like to think about both of those things, your diaphragm physically moving, and then the beach ball fully expanding through your rib cage, because that is something that most of us, especially if you are, you know, you're working from home, you're at your computer, you're probably stressed out if you're, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, we get into this very shallow breathing that can be kind of a vicious cycle, telling your body to be in fight or flight. Then when you're in fight or flight, then you are breathing shallow. Like it's kind of like the chicken or the egg kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can breathe full 3-dimensionally and breathe fully and fully expand through our rib cage, expand into the belly, expand into the back, then that can kind of, not just help with our body mechanics, but also help bring ourselves back into that parasympathetic nervous system, which then allows you to be creative and make decisions for your business and all of that fun stuff.
Wow. I love it. That makes so much sense. And it's so accessible. Like, if you're listening to this, chances are you're breathing. So you can work that in. I was just doing that visualization with you, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like the beach ball example. And yeah, that totally tracks. I'm gonna have to go Google what the heck a diaphragm looks like after this, because I'm very confused, but
it's very weird.
I don't.
Like, and you have like, it's parallel with your pelvic floor too.
Oh.
And so in my coaching, we talk through how to align your pelvic floor with your diaphragm, or kind of like your upper diaphragm and your lower diaphragm, and get those working together and all that stuff. And yeah, it's definitely good if you could just look up a picture of your diaphragm. That's going to help you so much, because it is a very weird thing to feel. And studies show that you do have voluntary control over your diaphragm or you can learn that with training. But it is a very weird muscle to be able to feel. And so if you have a picture, that's going to help you a lot. Or if you can find a video of like diaphragm during breathing and actually see how it moves up and down, that's
cool. Well, I'm definitely gonna nerd out about breathing after this. Thank you for sharing that. And okay, the other thing that your answer made me think of about the visualizations and the thumbs, the idea of, before you start making changes, you have to have a visual of what it's going to be like in order to start feeling safer in that potential. And if you're someone that deals with and lives with anxiety, you probably know like how important feeling safe is. And I think about like social anxiety, especially, as that's my personal flavor. And I'll, make plans to go to a restaurant with a friend, and there's already the stress of like, okay, what am I going to talk about? Like, haven't seen them in a while. What are some things I can bring up? Or, all the typical social anxiety things that come up. But then I also think about physically, like, what will the space be like? So I might look up on Yelp and whatnot. Like, I try to visualize how it's gonna go.
Yeah, you're like, what's the parking situation? You're like, yeah, like, what's the parking situation?
Yes.
What table are we do I want to get there first, so then I don't have to look around and wait for them, or do I? Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so you have a little bit of that flavor too. Maybe. Yeah. So social anxiety, right? It's like you need the more like imagery you can add to it, the more it feels like a memory. And so it feels safer, because it's like, oh, I've been there, I've done that. Like, I can picture it happening. It literally calms all of your like fight or flight symptoms that around panic, to relax into your body and be able to just like be in the moment. So that makes so much sense then to think about movement. It's like, yeah, even if you wanted to go, I was talking with an empowered health and wellness coach a couple episodes ago, and she was talking about, if you want to start, walking on your treadmill, the first day that you're going to work on walking on your treadmill isn't going to be the day that you actually walk on your treadmill. You're going to go, find your shoes. You're going to go put them into the room with the treadmill. You're going to think about yourself being on the treadmill. Like, just building some of that psychological safety and comfort with whatever you're trying to do makes so much sense. But a lot of people want to skip that step. And especially if you're like getting your advice from, I'm just going to say it, like the TikTok influencers of fitness.
Influencers.
Yes, exactly. They don't slow down and teach you those foundational pieces that someone with your education and background could do. And yet, like, that's what most people are craving, because that's the sustainable change that's going to be able to happen isn't just in the, oh, go do 5 reps of this and 10 of that and blah, 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 because you're not going to do that same workout forever. But if you learn the foundational principles of like how to visualize your growth, how to be mindful in your body, how to establish your own goals, how to actually work those goals and learn from it as you go, and like stay in tune with your body as you grow through these different movements you're doing, like that is literally something you can take with you for life. It's not just until you lose 10 pounds, you know?
Right. And that you can, I want people to graduate from me, like my business model is not that you're my client forever because you rely on me for this stuff. It's like, I want to teach you how to do this stuff and empower you to be able to do it on your own. And, obviously someone can choose to continue working with me if they want to. But I don't ever want someone to be reliant on me in the way that a lot of personal trainers are taught to kind of be. And a lot of like any sort of fitness thing that you buy, it's like, no, you need me to push you. You need me here. Otherwise you're not going to have the discipline, or like blah, blah, blah,
Right.
But yeah, I love the thing you said about the memory. I've never thought about it that way, of that visualization kind of acts as a memory that your body can use as like a safety indicator. And this visualization stuff is, very prominent in like sports medicine when we're dealing with athletes, right? You hear all the time about like, athletes, they're imagining themselves doing the thing over and over and over
winning
again.
the race, hitting the jump, like,
right. And so I think in some ways, even though we hear about that stuff, we think that it's not for us because we're not athletes. We're not the gymnast that is flipping 3 times in the air and trying to, you know what I mean? But it's like, no, we can use those tools too. We can use those tools to get started walking on the treadmill. We can use those tools. It doesn't have to be this like crazy thing that we're visualizing.
Right. It's like we think that, well, I'm not going to be performing a full gymnastics routine, or I'm not going to be having to show up at a Lakers game and like, be able to shoot a 3-point whenever I want. Like, and because of that, it's not that big of a deal, but it's like, but every day you're showing up in your body.
Yeah.
And you will have a performance that's called your life, like
that
you're living every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And and I think about like I have this tendency to kind of intuit something and then figure out later that like, oh, there's science behind this. That's cool.
Yeah, same.
And so one of the things is that visualization and imagining myself doing things. I imagine myself like doing all sorts of things all the time, like going through gymnastics routines. Like I constantly imagine myself doing back handsprings. I cannot do a back handspring right now, but like I imagine myself doing it.
Someday it's coming.
Yeah. And I do that. And then, and sometimes like I find that, maybe it's been a while since I've done something. But then I can still do it, even though I haven't been training for it. And I'm like, why does that work? And people used to just be annoyed by it, and be like, why can you hold on to a skill that you haven't been practicing? Like, isn't that use it or lose it? Like, how does that work? But I realize now, I'm like, no, it's because I was keeping those neuromuscular connections alive.
Yeah.
By imagining myself doing these things. And like, even if I wasn't like, continuing to practice that specific skill all the time. Yeah. And like, obviously that doesn't, going back to that study I shared, the people who imagine stuff, it wasn't 0%. of strength that they lost, like they still lost some strength. Like you can't replace movement and like the mechanical aspect of movement with just imagination, but it's powerful though.
Yeah, it's like, why wouldn't you do everything you could when like you're trying to fall asleep at night? Why not picture yourself reaching your goals?
Yeah. Or like in the shower, like
totally.
Stuff like I'm a big proponent of multitasking
Totally.
as well as mindful doing,
Yes.
but it's like, especially if you have ADHD or you struggle with kind of boring tasks or whatever, like you can make those work for you in a way. Like you can take showering or brushing your teeth or doing the dishes or whatever thing, and you can add imagination to it, visualization to it. You can, like I can't tell you how many, like I have a whole like bathtub stretch routine that I do. Like
what?
yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just want to like buy a never ending like Rachel's movement like library of lessons forever.
I think I need to start a series of like random movements that I do that probably are weird, but like because there's so many things where I was like, oh yeah, I do this thing, or I sit like this, and people are like, that's not normal.
Yeah. Well, like, and if it benefits you and most people aren't thinking about it, like, who cares if it looks weird? Like, if it's gonna help. That's like when I brush my teeth. One of the PT movements I did for my hips was just putting one foot up, like elevated a bit, like up one step basically, or two steps, and then leaning into it to stretch open something about my hips. And so now whenever I brush my teeth, it buzzes, every 30 seconds to move. It's a electric one. So I do that with on my bathtub now. It's like, look at me stretching my hips and brushing my teeth.
Yes. No, that is absolutely perfect. Like, yeah. And I have a whole, like, when I'm watching TV, it's like a little weird leg thing that I do, like just kind of like
your weird leg thing.
Wavy legs, as I call it.
Okay, I have to tell you this because now that you were talking about like the memory of, the movements and stuff, I feel like you'll understand this. I was in 6th grade and I don't remember how long. It was probably a month that when I was in 6th grade, I was on the drill team at my middle school.
Oh, cool.
Okay. I only remember like 20 seconds of the routine, but I replay this 20 seconds of drill, whatever we called it, dance routine, all the freaking time. And I could still do that 20 seconds, like so good. Don't remember the song, anything else about it, the people's names, the coach, like nothing but this one little chunk that I'm like, I know I was on drill team in 6th grade because I know that part of it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. I love that. And there's actually, I would need to look into this study a little more to remember what it like actually said.
Yeah.
But this idea that all of our cells have a certain amount of consciousness and memory, and like, because muscle memory, is 100% a thing. and that is like can be so helpful, especially if you have anxiety or like things like that. It's like, you can like Pavlov yourself with movement, like like if you have, like if you're really calm and then you always do a certain like hand, like maybe you do prayer hands or something, like just like bringing your hands together, like or whatever, and then you do that movement, and then your brain can be like, oh, this movement is associated with this feeling, like okay. And then like there's just like, it's so cool. Our bodies and our brains are so cool.
Seriously, so freaking cool. I love that. I feel like I could just talk to you for days and days and days.
I know, me too. It's a problem sometimes. I'm like I book a time to talk to somebody, like a friend or whatever. It's like, okay, we block the whole day out.
Right. I had a FaceTime call with a friend last weekend, and we were both like, after the call, like, how is it 4 hours later?
I know.
Like, sorry, hope you weren't trying to do anything with your afternoon.
I know. It's just like, oh my gosh, I could just like, I'm like, ooh, that makes me think of this, and that makes me think of this.
It's almost like we both have ADHD. It's so good though. Okay. With that in mind, I think we should probably wrap up our podcast so folks can find us on Instagram and other places to connect with us. Yes. And if anybody listening to this is like, wait, hold on, Genesis, you need to bring Rachel back to talk more about this or that or whatever stuck out to you, please just send me a message on Instagram. I will lovingly invite Rachel back, and hopefully we can continue this discussion. I really would love to also do like an Instagram takeover or something where you just like take over my Instagram stories for a day and teach my audience like body movements for working,
so fun.
On their computers all day or something.
Okay, but you have to do your dance routine though.
Oh my gosh. Maybe there's one part where you like drop to the floor. I can't do that part with these 30-year-old knees, but I can try. Yeah. Modified, yes.
Yes. Perfect. That could be another series, how to modify to like.
Oh my gosh. That's gonna be great. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. And I just want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything else you wanted to share today that we didn't get to cover yet?
Yeah, thank you so much, Genesis. This was so fun. Yeah, I'd say, just, connect with me on Instagram at Mindful Movement and Living. I always love answering people's questions on TikTok, on Instagram. You can always email me and we can, always set up a free consultation and see if we would be a good fit to work together and all of that. But yeah, I love getting curious, as you can tell. I love researching. I love solving problems and all that stuff. So as to quote Jenna, milk me like a cow.
That's so great. Me.
Oh my
gosh. Okay. That is so good. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Sustain Your Passion podcast. If this episode helped you gain a bit more clarity, courage, or confidence, please share it with your friends on social media or in a text. It would mean the world to me. Thanks in advance for sharing this episode. I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.